top 5 decks for the KC Cup in no particular order. We're starting off with the newest of all these, Blacklisted Soldier. Now this deck got an absolutely insane skill that gives you 6 monsters in the graveyard to start the duel, and a ritual spell in the graveyard to start the duel. And what this does for you is it, 1, gives you material for your Blacklisted Soldier Envoy at the beginning, but 2, it also gives you the material in the graveyard needed to perform 2 different ritual summons, as well as the ability to get a free ritual monster and a free ritual spell from your deck to hand, giving you +2 advantage off of that, plus like I said, all the material you need so you're not negging on the ritual summons when you make them. Absolutely insane skill that this deck has, and it allows you to have a small deck core that gives you plenty of room for things like Book of Moon, Cosmic Cyclone, the Crackdowns, plenty of back row and anti-back row cards. Plus we have the Magistus engine in here, which is a nice little engine that gives you a few different things that you can do with it, like drawing cards and attacking multiple times and being able to help finish off your opponent. And that's really important here in the KC Cup. As I always mention every time I do these videos, the more games you play, the more beneficial it is for you in terms of stats, right? The way the score system works, the more games you play, the higher rank you will generally be, even if you have the exact same win rate. So this deck being able to finish out games really fast is extremely important for it within the KC Cup, and I expect you're going to see a ton of this deck in the top 100, given that you have the ability to finish games so fast. Not only are you able to just dump 9,000 damage on the board super easily with all of your Black Soldiers, but of course don't forget, Envoy at the beginning has that great ability where you destroy something on battle, it gets to attack again, so that one card can easily do 4,000 damage on its own. And when you consider the fact that you can dump multiple ritual monsters on the field at the same turn, deck is extremely devastating, and I think it's going to take a lot of spots in the top 100 in this KC Cup. Next up, we have Trickstar, a deck that survived a few formats now and has done pretty well. You have a lot of versatility in this deck with the Trickstars being able to add the search ability with this deck with the Light Stage and the Candina. Also, of course, you have several hand traps with this deck, which are really, really versatile and can do a number of things, like the Korrabane and the Light Princess being battle traps, but also the Light Horses being able to bounce stuff back to your hand and dodge certain effects. We have a great spell card, which we have 3 of here in the Trickstar Festival, able to get us a Link monster with just 1 card, and plenty of board wipes in this deck. We have 2 Dark Hole, 2 Needle Sealing in here, plus extra back row in here to protect ourselves. This deck has a lot of protection. It is a little bit slower though. It doesn't quite OTK decks, or doesn't quite OTK others the way that the last deck that we looked at did. However, I do expect that this deck will still take up several decks or several spots within the top 100 of the upcoming KC Cup. It just has a lot of power to it and a lot of versatility with the trap cards that it can run, and the ability to wipe the board is also really nice as well, so expect to see several Trickstars in the top 100 also. Another deck that has been performing good for a long time now is the Odd Eyes deck. This deck has a ton of versatility in it. I wonder if it might hurt it just because we don't have access to a side deck here in the KC Cup, if that's going to be a little bit of a drag on this deck. Usually you have in tournaments like a side deck option where you can go ahead and side in various cards to deal with your opponents, and we have several different versions of this deck that we can run as well, right? We have the Odd Eyes version of this deck, we also have the pure version of this deck, we have the version of the deck that's running multiple Tackle Crusaders and goes in things like Beatrice. There's all kinds of different things you can do with this deck. We even have, like I said, things like Abyss Dweller and other kinds of extra deck options that we're not running here, so that might be a really good benefit for this deck, being able to switch in different options depending on what they're facing on the final day of the KC Cup. No matter what decks they're kind of running into within the top 100 or against the best players, they can put in different things like the Abyss Dweller, like Stebis, like Stego Cyber, like even Jinzo. This particular deck came from actually a teammate of mine, former teammate of mine from M2S, who was running Jinzo in the side deck, so they're and Token Collector in the side deck as well. So there's all kinds of crazy things that you can do with this deck that you can run against different people, that you can possibly main deck. But a lot of those cards that you would usually have access to in the side deck, this deck won't have access to, so it might be a little bit too much for this deck, having to constantly try to switch between things depending on what they're running against. There may just be too much for the Odd Eyes to worry about, and I do wonder if this deck may struggle because of that, but I think there'll still be several in the top 100 regardless though. Next up, we have another new deck in Tenney. This is another extremely explosive deck that can dodge multiple back row cards, or at least play through multiple disruptions, I should say. Tons of power for this deck to be able to explode and put out an extremely powerful boss monster in Draco, Berserker of the Tenyi, able to negate your opponent's monster's effects, and be able to go up to a big powerful attack points, be able to OTK your opponents on its own with over 4,000 attack. Draco, Berserker of the Tenyi is an extremely devastating card that this deck has access to, and I do expect that we'll see a lot of Tenney in the top 100 again. Any deck that's able to OTK really fast is going to do well in the KC Cup, assuming it can do so consistently, and this deck can definitely do that very consistently. You have lots of various search cards in here, various ways to get to what you need, and tons of ways to special summon stuff from your hand. So, and also the way that these work is as if you control no effect monsters, so if your opponent has something like a Book of Moon or things like that, you can still continue to play through it and be able to special summon these things from your hand. So just a lot of really powerful things that this deck deck can do, powerful link monsters deck can go into, and I expect that we'll see quite a few Tenney decks in the top 100 of this KC Cup as well. And last but not least, we have a Destiny Hero deck. Now, I'm going to be doing a full deck profile breakdown on this deck here in a video later on this week. We're also going to be doing a top 5 rogue decks and top 5 budget decks for the KC Cup over the next couple days as well. So do be sure to like, subscribe, and if you want to be able to get notifications for those videos when they come out over the next few days. But right now, we have a Destiny Hero deck here for our final deck in the top 5, and this deck has been really a good, reliable deck ever since we got the newest skill for it. Just like Blacklisted Soldier, a new skill came out that made this deck absolutely busted. It gives you a +4 when all is said and done, right? You get a free polymerization to your board, you get an extra malicious in your graveyard, so you get an extra summon off your malicious. You also get an attack boost on your fusion monster, which you can use to destroy a card on your opponent's side of the field, so that's +3. And because your skill lets you shuffle malicious back into your deck, you get an additional summon off the malicious that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, so that's +4 you get off of this skill. It's absolutely insane what you can do with it. It's very easy to open up with 3-set back row and Dystopia on the board, with giving yourself 4 interruptions for your opponent. That's usually enough to shut down Tenney, where they can, a lot of times they can play through 3, but if you can have that 4th one on there, that might be enough to just shut them down in a lot of games. Of course, we also have a, like I said, a ton of back row in this deck, so you have a lot of versatility in what kind of back row you want to run, depending on what you're playing against. We have cool things like Warding Point and Bottomless, which can devastate decks like Odd Eyes when they go for a Pendulum Summon. Fortunately, not as much room for stuff in the extra deck, even though we can make rank 4s really easily because our extra deck is so tight for space. We have trouble running things like a Bish Dweller and things like that, but you might be able to squeeze one in somewhere here. But really tough with how the deck is, especially with our Liquid Soldier combo, which is really powerful, though. Obviously, if you get the Liquid Soldier, you're not going to be able to get it every game because you either have to hard draw it or search it with the Rhoda, but when you do get it, it's extremely powerful being able to go into the Double Sunrise, getting the +2, draw 1 off of, or the draw 2, discard 1, +1 off the Liquid Soldier. Really powerful effect that this deck has access to. So this is kind of like the old reliable deck. I expect to see plenty in the top 100 of this deck, and like I said, I'm doing a full deck profile on this deck, or I actually have it fully complete. It'll be posted, I think, Friday this week is the day I'm going to upload that on. So yeah, but if you guys do like the video, or do like the video, please be sure to like and subscribe. It does help out the channel. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time, and you have a wonderful rest of the day.